We're back bright and early on the weekend edition of the program. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. We're broadcasting live from the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. As always, my people, but one.
Your people plus two. Yeah, I'm representing two and everybody else. Yes, it's Gratitude Friday, and thank God for all days, but thank God especially for Friday. And today is July the 26th. One more day before that day, and somebody's very happy this morning, and that person is Jeffrey.
26, one more day for what?
Before payday.
No. I'm not. I talk about dates, not necessarily because of payday.
And some people listening to me behind the scenes too are also very happy.
I don't, honestly, I don't do it because of payday necessarily. I just try to be conscious of time as much as possible because, you know, before you know the year is over.
I can send you my account number.
Well, I'm equal to the tax. Okay. So at the end of the day, before you know the year has started, and then January is gone, February is gone. Well, that's why we keep talking to the government all the time, because it's going, by next month, it's going to be August, then September, and then, you know, it's December. So,
as a matter of fact, about 5 days to be August the 1st, that day that is leaving palpitations in the hearts of many Nigerians right now.
So at the end of the day, we try to be as conscious as possible. So we tell government, look, from the experience, the highest you could be in office, whether you're a governor or a president, the highest you could be in office is 8 years. But some of us, this is a lifetime job. At least to the best of our ability, we love what we do. And you discover that the first 6 to 8 months, you're using it to fight litigation, whether you have the mandate of the people or not, whether you'll be removed from office through the court. And then the next time you have maybe a year and a half. And if you're running for a second term, which most of them will, you already have just 2 years to really do governance. So you spend better part of half of that either litigation or trying to get re-elected.
You know, Jeffrey, I beg to differ because, you know, our politicians campaign in poetry, but they govern in prose. And, you know, they come with all of the promises about how they're going to transform the fortunes of the nation. They're going to give opportunity for employment. They're going to industrialize the country. They're going to improve agriculture. And then many years down the line, you're waiting for all those promises to materialize. So it's, you know, inconsequential whether they spend 6 months to 1 year on litigations in the courts or not. They came with a promise of capacity and competence and creativity and, you know, the wherewithal in terms of personnel to deliver. So expectations are high from the first day. And especially because, you know, they say in these parts that, you know, the campaigns for the very next election begin on the first day after the election has been won. So expectations are high on all sides from, you know, the elected and appointed officials on the promise to deliver. So litigations do not really
Well, that
matter.
is the ideal.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the ideal. I'm talking about the Nigerian reality, you know. When you look critically at the end of the day, you realize that some of these governors really don't have capacity, in all honesty. Some of the legislators don't have capacity. So the mistake electorate make is the fact that because someone is a governor or president or a legislator, suddenly becomes very smart. He's the wisest man in the room. That's not true. At the end of the day, after 4 years, we've seen governors in this country that were total blanket failures. That is what they were. We are not ready to call names. When it gets to that point, we'll call those names. They were failures. And I'm saying to you that even the ones we have now, some will end up as failures because we're already seeing the telltale signs. They lack creativity. They are not innovative. They are not people-oriented. They lack empathy and all of that. So that's what I'm saying. Ideally, you're correct that nobody cares whether you spend 10 years or 3 years or 2 months on litigation. You should deliver because you made a promise, even if you have 2 days. We've seen people lead for 4 years and they did incredibly well. We've seen people lead for 8 years and you're asking yourself, how did we make this mistake to put this man in power in the first place? So it's all of this. But
well, You know, they say that people are as good as those that they elect. But then again, you've seen that elections more often than not have been determined by the courts in these parts. So that is another subject of debate. I was about to go into the protest, but Jeffrey, what do you have for us today? What do we have?
Before we jump into all that, I'm not too happy that Super Falcons couldn't get a victory yesterday. You know, at the end of the day, besides all of the things that are happening in the country,
lost to Brazil.
Yeah, we needed to look at that direction to celebrate, but unfortunately, we couldn't get that victory yesterday at the Olympics. And one of the things I like about the Olympics is that any sport that makes me angry, I go to the next one, because it's not like football.
It's good for your mental health.
Yeah, it's good for. So yesterday, I moved from football to handball to rugby. So there are so many channels you could switch to just enjoy the sport. But hey, that's not what we're dealing with today. Let's tell you exactly what we'll be talking about today on the program. The first up is going to be this issue of the economic hardship occasion by the twin reforms of the Tinubu-led administration, which is causing unease in the polity, with nation and the country bracing up for a possible nationwide protest from August the 1st. And now the government appears to be conflicted on how to manage peaceful protests and concerns over potential breach of security. Let's talk about it today.
Very important conversation, but that's not all. Some of the actions of the 9th National Assembly in approving spending for the federal government plunged the current government into some of its challenges. And so today we examine the role of the legislature in oversighting the executive to ensure how it manages our commonwealth in order to curb excesses.
So at the end of the day, what are the people in the National Assembly doing to make sure that our commonwealth is properly spent for our good as a people? But that's not all. We'll also be having on the softer side of things, a gentleman who is, you may have seen him on your screen, but I'm not going to reveal his name. He's a host like us, anchors like us, but he does it on screen and off screen. We're going to explore his journey and how he stays true to his brand. He's going to be joining us sometime on the show towards the end of it, right here on the very weekend edition of the program. Bukola, so it's time to now get started with all of this. So we will go for a quick break, and of course, that's it.
We'll let the cat out of the bag.
Oh, I thought we will not let this cat out of the bag.
So all his association members, I'm sure they'll gather right now and wait for that segment. But of course, every bit of the morning brief will be worth your while this morning. And our WhatsApp handle?
Yes, that's Hero Daniels. He'll be joining us later on the show. But that is not all. You know, we like you to be part of the show. So go to X, post there, and be part of the show. As much as possible, we'll bring you up to speed with what you're talking about on X, as well as on WhatsApp. That's the number. Do not call. Send your messages and your videos. Whatever is going on around you, please do well to send it to us. All your concerns, all your comments as the show progresses as to some of the things we're talking about. Your own 2 cents. We'd like to hear it from you right here on the program. Break. When we come back, we'll bring you your top stories. Join us again. Top on the brief this morning is the palpable anxiety that the planned nationwide protest appears to be generating, compelling President Bola Tinubu to consult with traditional rulers behind closed doors. Some of the first-class monarchs were at the State House, includes the Oni of Ife, the Sultan of Sokoto. In attendance also were the top members of the President's Cabinet, APC governors, the National Security Advisor, the Inspector General of Police, among others, consulted with the President in a last-minute move to dissuade organizers of the End Bad Governance protest to shelve their plans and give government more time to activate their policies. In the meantime, the Department of State Services is asking persons and groups yet to identify themselves in the public as leaders of the nationwide protest to shelve their plans and avoid any semblance of anarchy. In a statement by the Director of Public Relations and Strategic Communications, Mr. Peter Funaya, the service says that while peaceful protest is a democratic right of citizens, it has confirmed a sinister plan by some elements to infiltrate the protest and use it to cause chaos and extreme violence in the land. The service claims it has identified the reason behind the protest to be political, as those behind it intend to use violence to smear the federal and subnational government, make them unpopular and pit them against the masses with long-term objective of achieving a regime change, especially at the center. A similar sentiment is shared by the defense headquarters over the planned protest, warning that the armed forces won't allow violent protests that can degenerate into anarchy. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, at a press briefing in Abuja, hinted that organizers of the planned protest intend to replicate the recent protest run and turn anarchy demonstration in the East African country of Kenya. General Buba said although citizens have a right to ventilate their grievances, the military won't condone any form of violent gatherings or protests in the guise of agitation.
The level of violence being envisaged can only be described as a state of anarchy. The armed forces on its part will not stand by and allow anarchy to befall our nation. This is because we have seen wars and have witnessed anarchy in countries in which we have operated, particularly during the times of ECOMOG or during our peacekeeping operations in various countries. I believe that some people out there may fantasize about war or state of anarchy, thinking that it is like what they see in the movies. I assure you that war or a state of anarchy is not what you see in the movies. It involves real people, real situations, and real life.
Well, it's a different tone from the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, who are asking security agencies and the government to ensure adequate protection for those who will join in the nationwide protest. The president of the TUC, Mr. Festus Osifo, maintains protest is a fundamental right provided for by the Nigerian Constitution, although it distances itself from the protest. Mr. Osifo also clarifies reasons why organized labor settled for 70,000 naira as a new national minimum wage.
You know, as a Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, you know, we have been involved in several protests. We are also happy with some of the comment that we are hearing from different quarters, assuring that when the protests do take place, that these people will be protected. Because our concern really, we don't want a situation whereby the protest goes on and at the end of the day, it leads to violence. So we want to hereby call on the Inspector General of Police and the entire security agencies to do everything possible to provide security for whoever intends to carry out protest, so that such protests will not degenerate into chaos. The leadership has never sat down one day on its own to call for strike or a protest. All we know is that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is very clear on the issue of peaceful protest. And the Police Act also mandated the police that when there is a protest, you should ensure that there is law and order. You should ensure that those that are protesting are also protected.
And away from the protest, the federal government says it has spent over $1.5 billion from 2020 to date to protect the nation's oil installations and curb crude oil theft. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, disclosed this at a public hearing of the House of Representatives on crude oil theft. Senator Akume was represented by the Permanent Secretary, General Services, Maurice Nandi, says the federal government was worried about the reports of the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NATI, which pointed to over $46 billion worth of stolen crude oil between 2009 and 2020.
The government has invested considerable resources in combating this menace. Since 2020, expenditure aimed at addressing crude oil theft and securing our oil infrastructure has exceeded $1.5 billion.
Let's also tell you that following the recent face-off between Dangote Refinery and the oil sector regulator, the Senate plans to invite the Central Bank, the Nigerian Ports Authority, Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Dangote Group, and Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Heineken Lokbobri, among others, for questioning over alleged economic sabotage in the country's petroleum industry. This is according to the leader of the Senate and the chairman of the Senate Ad hoc Committee on Alleged Economic Sabotage in the Nigerian petroleum industry at a media briefing. The chairman disclosed this at a 14-member committee constituted on July the 23rd will investigate billions of dollars spent on turnaround maintenance of the state-owned refineries in the last decade to address deep-seated challenges confronting the industry.
The committee, along with Nigerians, is particularly interested in understanding why local refineries are not working, despite the substantial amount of money spent annually on their maintenance and operation. We will closely examine what the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited has been doing to address this persistent problem.
And to electoral management, where the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has declared that the commission is capable of successfully conducting local government election if given the responsibility to do so by law. He, however, raised the question of funding for their by-elections. The INEC chairman gave the assertion when he appeared before the Joint Committee on Electoral Matters to present the Ondo and Ado elections off-cycle election budget.
If this responsibility for conduct of local government election is transferred to INEC, can INEC cope? The answer is yes, INEC can cope. So if we are asked to do these elections, yes, we can. And our track record actually proves that we can do it.
Let's now talk business. The federal government plans to issue $500 million in domestic foreign currency bonds in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And this is coming from the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun, during a press briefing in Abuja on economic recovery and growth. Mr. Edun explains that the bonds will use Nigeria's financial system rather than Western structures or Euro bonds. The goal is to attract foreign currency from Nigerians abroad and others interested in supporting the Nigerian government's economic reforms. He adds that the government has no current plans to issue Euro bonds and will focus first on the success of these domestic bonds. On the international scene, residents of a historic town of Jasper and the surrounding national park are counting their losses following a ravaging of wildfire. An official from Alberta province says it is still out of control, and Alberta Premier describes it as the worst nightmare for any community fighting back tears during a press briefing. An estimated 25,000 people have now been evacuated from Jasper National Park following homes that have now been destroyed. Well, Super Falcons of Nigeria were unlucky after 90 minutes, losing to Brazil 1-0 in their first match at this year's Paris Olympics. Brazil beat Nigeria after Gabi Nunes scored from an assist by Mata. The assist had converted a goal earlier that was disallowed. Brazil dominated Nigeria in their ball possession, but the Super Falcons proved quite competitive. The Super Falcons had a great chance when Captain Rasheedat Ajibade created an opportunity but lost it due to lack of support. Well, better luck next time, apparently. So those are the stories we've been tracking for you in the last 24 hours to the early part of this morning. And of course, we'll shape part of our conversation for the show and the rest of the day. Bukola joins me now to bring us up to speed with what you're saying on X, Bukola.
Yes, hello again, Jeffrey. And Nigerians have been saying quite a lot. Of course, the planned nationwide protest is high on their minds, but there are also other talking points that are just as important. But let's start with the planned nationwide protest. And this time around, Nigerians are reacting to the comment by the information minister about how this is a family matter and there are hopes that peace will prevail. And the first person reacting this morning is Ahmed Aminu Aliyu, who says now it is the time for all elected politicians from the local level, state level, and federal levels to come out and meet the people who voted for them. Have a face-to-face discussion and let them know you're willing to help them during this hardship. God bless Nigeria, I believe he wanted to say.
Docs, okay, if I can have that said, cut the cost. Yes, cut the cost of governance in Nigeria fix the economy, fix our refinery to allow production so as to end crude oil theft and scam of subsidy, which is draining the Nigerian purse. Nigerian politicians should slash their allowances by 60%. With this, no citizen will complain.
Yes, indeed. And the next one is from Okpas. No, this one is from West Tekena, actually. And they say, family matter. You think Nigerians protesting against bad governance is a family matter? It's a matter of survival, justice, and accountability. Don't downplay the people's cry for help. Minister, we need concrete actions, not empty hopes for peace. Hashtag not a family matter.
All right, this person, live and live. That's how that's what you call yourself on X. It says, this minister spoke well. I respect this comment more than all other comments asking youths to shun protest.
And the next one is from the Champion. Champion says, open border, reverse subsidy, end banditry and general insecurity, reverse electricity tariff. That is all we're asking for at official bat, quoting the president's official X handle. And he continues by saying, please stop stressing yourself, sir. Meet our demands, and there is no protest anymore.
All right, Nebe Chuku says, you and who are family, you're enjoying our Commonwealth, and we are the ones that are meant to be patient. Make this comment, make this statement make sense. I guess that's what you wanted to say.
Well, let's move on to the next talking point now. This time around, Nigerians are commenting on the tragic building collapse that occurred yesterday in Arowojobe Estate, Wilson Street to be precise, that saw the death of 5 persons who were site workers, and I believe 5 more who were injured. A very tragic incident there. And this first reaction is coming from Asom, who says, this is becoming a consistent occurrence. Government needs to do more on checking building plans and making sure engineers adhere to standard procedure when erecting structures. May their souls rest in peace. All
right, Cash Craft says, this is truly heartbreaking news. My thoughts and prayers are with the families of the victims. The government needs to ensure stricter safety regulations to prevent such tragedies in the future. Safety first. I think this is becoming one too many in Lagos.
And Lagos shares the highest burden of building collapses recorded since beginning really in the 1970s. But that's according to the Building Collapse Prevention Guild. This next one is from January 27, who says, begins with an exclamation mark. My God and Father, the rate of building collapse this period is really alarming. Sad that there are even more recent ones.
Tammy Zoo says more than 60% of collapsed buildings in Nigeria are in Lagos. What are they really doing in this Lagos?
And the last one is from Engineer Chinedu, who says contributors of house collapse, geologic factor, engineering factor, or pata of them all now, corruption factor, that no one will make builders buy inferior materials for construction.
All right, let's go to the next one that has to do with the protest. And our thoughts and prayers, by the way, are with the families of the persons who lost their lives, so that some of these things are avoidable if the authorities and everyone who is in charge of construction does their job. So let's see. This is coming from what General Buba said yesterday, that while citizens have the right to peaceful protest, they do not have the right to mobilize for anarchy and unleash terror. So these are your responses. XYZ Dogzig says, Doski says, wrong conception, sir. If the military wish, they should join hands with the Nigerian police to ensure the protesters are protected and the process is never hijacked by criminal elements. The citizens are demanding for governance, therefore protesting against bad governance in Nigeria.
Well, Mbuyazi is also scrutinizing that comment by the Director of Defense Media Operations, and they say, is this a declaration of war against the masses of this country? You don't conclude a protest is violent when there is no declaration of war or rumor, evidence of armament.
Okay, last with loads of number. Who told them that we are planning to burn down this country? We strongly cling to the hope that our planned peaceful protest will act as a catalyst for the reformation of Nigeria. We'll move on from there to Lagos State doctors threatening to shut down over unpaid allowances. This is quite surprising. Bukola, you have the first one.
Yes, and it's from Magnet Afri 1897, who says, I thought Sanwo-Olu just gave out 100K to NYC members in Lagos. He should pay our health workers, please.
And Suleiman Kende says the Lagos State governor claimed he pays coppers 100,000 naira but failed to pay his medical workers for their outstanding allowances. So yes, our job is to amplify your voices as you speak on X, which was formerly Twitter. And so those are the things you've been saying and the ones we were able to track within the time we have. We will now get to the big conversations for the day, from the issue of the state of the polity that has to do with the protest, to issues of legislative oversight and many other things we'll talk about on the program. But that will come up just after this break. Join us again.
Welcome back to the program. And so as we start off, so much to reflect on this morning, particularly as they have to do with the planned nationwide protests tagged End Bad Governance or Hardship protests, as the case may be. And it's important to, view this protest against the backdrop of government's disposition towards it, security agents' disposition towards it, and what may likely play out on August the 1st. So joining us to have that conversation this morning, we have the Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Mr. Aliu Audu. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Yes, indeed. It's good to have you. So starting from what has played out in the last 48 hours or so, we've seen visits to the villa by groups from religious organizations, from traditional institutions, and much of the sentiment emanating from them would be they're suing for peace, appealing for patience, for the government policies to mature. But how representative of the will of the people, amid the current economic realities, are these sentiments? And perhaps we may also ask why those visits to the villa, are coming at this material time.
All right. I mean, the visit just shows how very close to reality Mr. President is. It's the president that listens. I mean, as much as over the decades, a lot of Nigerians have had reasons to think that the gap between the people and the government is so widened that the government officials are usually disconnected from reality. It is not so. If we follow the track record of Mr. President, he's a Democrat. He's a true Democrat, and he has always been a progressive, pro-people and pro-nation individual. If we understand over the past 1 year that he's taken over the leadership of this country, I mean, he has listened. There are a number of decisions he's made, and when faced with superior argument, he's had to rescind some of those decisions, review them, and it shows clearly that he's a people's leader. He listened. However, our current challenges, it's such that it didn't start last year. It didn't start a couple of years from now. We've had these issues for decades, but at some point we are going to have to make the decision as to how we want to be governed, and the bold reforms that he has taken are in the right direction as to how to ensure that, every single Nigerian is taken into account, when the running of this country, matter, when running of this country is being, discussed or put in place.
But Mr. Audu, one might ask if those visits are at the behest of the government such that they can prevail on the people, on young people, and on the generality of Nigerians not to embark on protests, and not necessarily because the visits were intended for other purposes.
Yes, of course. The way the leadership system in Nigeria is structured, we have the traditional leadership, then we have the different tiers of government. Then, we have leadership at different levels. And the one way to communicate effectively to the people is to ensure that whatever information is being passed across is passed across every tier, every set of this leadership level in such a way that we are listening to one another. We are not talking on one another. We hear the people, the traditional leaders, for instance, like they said when they met with Mr. President yesterday, is that they are closer to the people. They have come with their information as to how the people feel. I mean, if Nigerians feel before that their words or their concern are not getting to Mr. President, such visit is a confirmation that they do get to Mr. President. And Mr. President, in return, has explained to the traditional leaders exactly why and what he is doing and why he is doing that. And again, still suing for patience. I mean, it's very easy for Nigeria to not want to pay attention to that, because over the years we've heard about this patient from successive governments in the past, but this is different. The policies that Mr. President have come up with, the reforms are essential to reposition our country, are essential to stop the bleed, are essential to stop us from going into bankruptcy. And the signs are there that that these policies are right and are making the right result, and we can see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, we are doing that bend, and in no time the result will start coming, you know, and it will touch the lives of average Nigeria. So such visit, you know, it's essential, because there is a continuous need to remind the people that the government does not exist if not for the people. And the only way to keep talking is not, I mean, the president will speak via media, but it's equally important that he speak through the other level of leadership in the society, so that they go back to their various communities and pass on the information from president, and as they have brought in information from the people. So we are on the same page. At this point, what we need is to put our heads together, just like the information minister has said. It's a family matter. Election is long gone. I mean, the competitive nature of election pitches us against one another because of political interest or ideological differences when there are. But in terms of governance, we are a single pool. There is no different market for any different set of people. There is no market for people in government or market for people not in government. There's no market for opposition or market for people in party in power. We experience the same thing. And if we are to succeed together, we are going to have to collaborate. We are going to have to work, explain, you know, from both sides what the government is doing at all times, and listen to what the people are saying and make them understand and get them to key into the initiative of Mr. President and see how quickly, you know, we can turn around our situation and, you know, build ourselves a nation that we'll all be proud of.
All right, Mr. Aldo, a couple of questions. First up, there are concerns as to how government is diagnosing this problem. One of the things you have also mentioned is the fact that it's a family matter. And sometimes it just tickles the sensitivity of Nigerians when the political class, especially those in power, are mostly maybe rushed to conclude that this is politically motivated. And I'll tell you why I'm asking you this question. First, 2 days ago, we had a gentleman here who had, was it diabetes? Yes, he had diabetes. And he was explaining to us he used to buy his drugs for 3,000 naira. And he needs those drugs 3 times in a month. Today, he buys it for 22,000 naira. That's over 600% hike. So when that conversation happens between the president and all the people that come to see him, besides the reform that the president has put in place and the things we see him do, does the president really know what the people want? Can you tell Nigerians that the president knows what Nigerians want?
He does. Like we've said time and time again, Mr. President is very in touch with reality. He's close to the ground. He listens and he's pragmatic. These issues, it's across board. It's not just in the pharmaceutical industry. It's across board, and it's been around for a while. However, while we want to address all of this, the patriotic angle to it is to study why, is to, you know, be very empirical as to study why the situation why we are currently in the situation we are in, and what caused it, and how do we get out of it. And the only way to get out of it is to be productive. And the only way to be productive as we are is to be globally competitive. Over the years, over the decades, we agreed that perhaps maybe before the 1966 coup, we haven't really been managed, you know, at macroeconomic level as a nation in a way that we are globally competitive. And what this has done is, it might not have been evident over the years, but with the increase in population, increase in demand for these resources that is not as growing as the population is growing, a lot of the realities, we are now faced with reality as to the challenges as to not managing our economy properly. And the right way to do this, to turn this around, is ensuring that we set on ground the foundation for building and rebuilding our economy in such a way that our today actions align with our aspiration for tomorrow, so as to ensure that we are not, destroying tomorrow while just trying to take care of a few persons today. So as to ensure that today that, the pain that we are having to go through, the discomfort that we're having to go through is intended, and everything is done to ensure that tomorrow we look back and said, we are pleased and we are happy we went through this pain, and we have reasons to be proud of decisions we've made. Mr. President is in touch. He is aware of this, and everything he's done, if we look through his record, he's not in position he is right now by accident. He's been about progressive, governance. He's been about national development. He's been a patriotic citizen. He's been patriotic leader. Why we know that there might be distrust in terms of what we've heard from previous government, but Mr. President is different. Let's look at his track record. The Lagos we are all proud of today is a long-term plan and execution of Mr. President while he was at the subnational level. There are a lot of projects that are coming to light today that he had envisioned way back as many as 20, 21, 23 years ago. And, it's not going to have to take that long for us to get to where we are, where we ought to be, but it's going to have to take time, and that's what we need to understand.
Mr. Audu, there's a question I always ask people like you who are in government that I have not gotten an answer. Maybe this morning you give us an answer. When you say we will get the results we're looking for, what is this result? So let me play the numbers for you. I'm sure you are familiar with it. Our inflation is 40% at food level, 15% higher than in METIT. Our headline is about 11% higher than in METIT. Cost of living is extremely high. People are struggling and suffering. Interest rate is pretty high. I can go on and on and on with the numbers that we're familiar with and the ones we're not familiar with. So when economists, the managers and the handlers of this economy say it's going to get better, it's going to do this, and people in government also echo that, what exactly is this end result?
All right, let's get something right. It's one thing to want to be very emotional about the state of things. We all feel it. Nobody is insulated from it. But the other thing is we need to be scientific. We need to be very pragmatic as to what our problems are and how we're going to solve it. And we need to have a common vision as to where we want the country to be. I'll tell you, as far back as 2011, 2012, when we had it good. We had finance minister at the time talked about the need to save for the rainy day. I think our population was about 180 million thereabout, but then we had about 112 million living under the poverty line. As we speak today, we have about 133 in multidimensional poverty. My point is, we have always had these problems. There are reasons behind the high inflation rate. We are not productive. I agree that the removal of subsidy has contributed to it. I agree that the liberation of the currency, that is the floating of Naira, has contributed to it. But when we look at the real intention behind these two moves, these two particular moves, the real intention behind them, it is to ensure that we right all of this wrong that we have suffered from over the years. The signs are there. Why we look at these numbers, why we look at the inflation and say this, we had the COVID impacted global inflation. It is coming down globally right now in other countries. However, we had a peculiar challenge.
My apologies if I may butt in. Mr. Audu, if I may butt in, my apologies. Trust me, when I ask the question, I know exactly what I'm saying. It's not about being emotional. I understand economics to a good extent. So when you liberalize trade, and privatize assets to taper inflation. That is what all of this is all about at the end of the day. And I still ask that question. There has to be a target. I'll give you an example. The ECB, the Americas, the global north, we see targets. And the global target is always 2% at the end of the day to taper inflation to that point. We're looking at 21%. We're doing 33 right now. And it's very doubtful that we're going to get anything less than 30 at the end of the year. So when we talk about, I know exactly, when I talk about target, I want us to put number to it, not because you mentioned scientific here. For the global north and maybe the ECB, just hold on. The fundamentals are right. They don't have as much, at least to the level we have, issues of power, issues of infrastructure, issues of security. Yes, they have insecurity, but not at the level we have. Our fundamentals and the legacy issues are not being resolved. How will all of these measures even have effect if the fundamentals are not resolved, even for productivity itself? Our cash cow is doing 1.2 million barrels right now. And that is one of the things we can control easily. People are still stealing our oil. There's scam in that space. So that's why I'm asking you, when you say a better future, can this government tell me what that future means?
All right, like you rightly said, the CBN governor, anticipate that the inflation rate is going to come down to somewhere around 21% by the end of the year. I mean, it's like you said, you do not think we're going to get that, but I mean, we have to keep our hope up. We have to be positive, and some of the fundamentals you've mentioned, it's as a result of misdirection of funds over the years. I mean, we've had the subsidy regime has not helped in any way made us competitive. It has not helped improve the productivity of Nigeria. These are all of the issues that affect inflation. These are all of the issues that affect cost of living. However, in the last 1 year, I mean, the global rating companies, the S&P, the Fitch, there's a renewed confidence in our economy. There's a renewed confidence in the reform that Mr. President is undertaking. And the data is showing that, yes, we are turning the bend. The data reflects that, yes, we are on the right track. I mean, our Q1 for this year, we have trade surplus of 6 trillion plus. That hasn't happened before. I mean, we are not going on this journey blindly. This is a well-thought of approach that Mr. President has taken. We are not first to go through this. India had to go through this. China had to go through this. Vietnam had to go through this. Turkey had to go through this. We are having to do this, and the more we understand, the more we believe that what we are doing, it is not for everybody to blindly believe. But if we are going to question, let's question within reason. We are going to be emotional about it, but let's equally be very patriotic in our approach to analyzing issues. We have increased foreign direct investment into the country right now. In the last 1 year, there has been commitment of over $30 billion into the economy. What is that going to do? That's going to increase productivity. Mr. President, in his electricity bill, has now decentralized generation, transmission, distribution, all the way through the 3 tiers of government. What that simply means is that for productivity to go up, we need energy. And energy being taken to the point that the local government, the state government can all now be involved even in regulation of this energy, means that jobs are going to be created, wealth is going to be created, and the economy is going to boom, and we're going to have growth and development within the economy. Our stock market is doing well. It's about the best in the world right now. These are all indications that the policies Mr. President has undertaken are the right one. It's going to be painful. You are not going to make this turn without some discomfort. And he understood this from the very beginning, and he has always appreciated the patience, and he has sued and pleaded for more patience, for more time from Nigeria. He's confident of the approach we've taken. We are all confident about it, but we need to dialogue. We need to know whoever is coming to make input as to how the country is being run has to be very, scientific in their approach.
Ms. Audu, the question is, when will the jobs be created? When will the wealth be created? You are the special assistant to the president on public affairs. I wonder if you're keeping tabs on the outcomes of the promises made by this administration. For instance, the quick wins that would have been efforts to cushion the effect of the impact of removal of fuel subsidy on Nigerians. Last year, July, a state of emergency was declared on agriculture, but here we are today. Prices of commodities have skyrocketed after the declaration of a state of emergency on agriculture. The promised CNG buses, for which billions of naira were deployed in the first part, the CNG buses have not arrived. And there's been another deployment of 10 billion naira for the purchase of more CNG buses under the household support program. We are yet to see that. Last month, during an interview with the Minister of Finance, he says the distribution of 75,000 naira to 10 million Nigerians for 6 months was back on track. Where are the Nigerians that are receiving these funds? Are you keeping tabs on that as well? I could go on and on to talk about efforts announced by the administration, but we have not seen the results. How accountable have the ministries deployed to manage these policies of government been?
All right. I mean, while there are challenges as to bringing some of these promises within the time, earlier speculated, but the fact is efforts are being doubled up to ensure that this comes to reality. Let's start with the agriculture. Over 60,000 new jobs have been created in the entire agricultural value chain in the last since the declaration of that state of emergency in agriculture. I mean, over 2.1 million fertilizers have been distributed to farmers. 160-something thousand farmers have been trained in wheat production. Prior to this, I mean, for instance, we produce only 1% of about 6 million metric tons of wheat that we consume annually in Nigeria. But with the dry season farming, with the round-the-year green imperative program of Mr. President, there's been an increase in agricultural production. I mean, it's going to take a little time for harvest to come in, and the entire investment in the agriculture, I mean, the 100 billion naira investment in the National Agricultural Development Fund, is to ensure that the entire value chain in agriculture is being looked at from planting. The seedling, the high yielding seedling, is being looked at. The research institute have been mandated to ensure that the farmers have available high yielding seedling. Then we talk about mechanized agriculture. What we've been doing is been subsistence farming. I mean, there's the 2,000, the John Deere project, tractors acquisition that is ongoing at the moment, and this is supposed to happen for the next 5 years, 2,000 every year for the next year, for a total of 10,000 jobs. The grant you talk about, there's the 50,000 to nano traders. I mean, over 500,000 have gotten that. It's ongoing. Some of these processes are ongoing. Slow, yes, they are ongoing, but we must understand that there is the Nigerian culture as to how we've been used to doing things, and there's going to be slow. I mean, the speed is going to be slowed down by this culture. It's going to take a little while. People in government, the appointees and the public servants are getting to understand the body language of Mr. President. It's going to take a little time to turn around the culture of Nigerians, both in public offices and in private sector, to understand that, Mr. President means businesses, and we are going to have to change the way we currently do things to ensure we get results in quicker time.
So some are saying that perhaps the president's cabinet should be reviewed for lack of efficiency in the delivery of some of these promises. What are your thoughts on that?
It's just, I mean, the cabinets have been in place for less than a year. The administration itself is just a year plus. And the good thing about Mr. President is, I mean, he's not one to be pressured. He's not one to be rushed onto doing things. He's taking, I mean, he's put in place measures to assess performance of his appointees. And he's going to do what he needs to do. He doesn't like to fail, and he will not, he has said it repeatedly, he's not going to tolerate, individuals or group of people who will make him fail. His track record does not show any sign of anyone who is afraid to take action. I mean, the steps, the policies that a lot of people seem to have issues with are bold steps that a lot of presidents in the past, heads of governments in the past have refused to take. But he is the one known for taking difficult decisions. When the time comes and he feels the need to, make changes in his cabinet, he will do that. But we equally must give people time, people given assignment, equally must give them time to make, I mean, the entire policy reform is changing a whole lot of things. It's going to take a little time to do. It's not just down to individual performance. The whole system is being changed. And this will take a little while for us to start seeing results. We're going to have to be a little patient on that. I mean, he isn't particular about how he is saying. He's particular about how the country does. You know, performance of the country is what is paramount on his agenda, and he's not going to leave any stone unturned to achieve that.
Mr. Audu, the reason why we're asking that question, because at the end of the day, it will be remembered as Bola Tinubu's administration. He has over 45 or so people in his cabinet that are working for him. And some we are seeing ineffective. Some we don't even know their name, not even talk of what they do, which is why we're asking. Because the Nigerian we live in today requires a level of urgency that is beyond any other time, perhaps, in the history of our country. Remember that we've always said that these problems were not necessarily created by this government, but the APC government were part of the creation of the problems we have, because President Buhari just left office 8 years ago and plunged us into incredible debts that we're still rattling and struggling with. So in this context, don't you think it's time for the president to, you say he's not pressured, but power belongs to the people, but he has the power to make appointments as much as he wants at the end of the day. But don't you think that he needs to see that his cabinet needs a bit of, whether it's to reappoint them, change their ministries or something, I don't know.
Yeah, like I've said, he will do what he needs to do at the right time. I mean, he's not unaware of his expectation from his appointees, from his cabinet. He has set his target. He's very close to the people. He understands how the people feel. He's looking at the indices. You know, the thing we need to understand is like the economy, the national economic as a whole is. The macroeconomic is dependent on the microeconomic as much as the microeconomic is dependent on the macroeconomics. But we've got to start from somewhere. And at the level, it takes time. You know, policies, results from policies, you know, usually come after a while. And we are already getting results at the macroeconomic level. And it's down to how all the other initiatives of Mr. President is put into place and how they are diligently implemented. We have all of the reform he's doing in tax, for instance, and all of the recommendations being passed on. The presidential orders is working on to ensuring that I mean the small businesses are protected and pressure is taken off them. By the time all of this kicks in, then the microeconomy, which actually it's about the individual businesses, individual activities will start reflecting the change that we all want to see. But at this point in time, it will be too hasty.
You know, Mr. Audu,
it will be too hasty.
I've been searching for clarity about a definitive time that will be put to, you know, the outcomes of these efforts by the administration. You know, we say time and again that there's a difference between effort and result. So perhaps we should begin to look at those ministries one by one. We should mention a few, for instance, the Agriculture Ministry. You have mentioned, you know, quite some efforts that are going on, but perhaps these efforts ought to have gone on from day one, such that by now, a little over a year after the administration, we'll see the result. But rather, what we're seeing is a creation of livestock ministry, and which was supposed to be, you know, under the Ministry of Agriculture in the first place. Isn't it an indictment on the Ministry of Agriculture for being unable to manage that aspect of the ministry? That's on the one hand. Where are the results in the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy? And then the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry, who are we going to hold accountable for the seeming lack of accountability in the distribution of, you know, funds meant as palliatives to cushion the effect of the removal of fuel subsidy? These are some of the reasons we're asking these questions about the seeming lack of efficacy in the ministries under this administration.
You see, the agriculture issue didn't start now. It didn't start 10 years ago. It's been around for a long time. And I mean, the issues, like we've said earlier, were fundamentals. And at this point, what the government under President Bola Tinubu is addressing is the fundamentals, so as to, you know, ensure that our economy, our economy is is rebuilt on the right fundamentals. So all of this other part will come to play. We have the population that is growing, about 2.4%, and we have agricultural production that is on the increase of about 1.8. We've been behind what we required over a long period of time. And as we play catch up, as we try to improve on things, we've got to equally be open-minded to reviewing decisions. Creation of the new Ministry of the Livestock Development Ministry isn't an indictment in any way about of agriculture. It's about ensuring that we have more, we pay more attention to critical issues, that can bring us quick results. I mean, if we have more people working at the same time on different issues, the chances are that we are going to get a result faster. And it's gotten to a point where we mustn't really think that, change in plans. I mean, if a system you want to achieve isn't giving you a result, the president is committed to consistently reviewing his action. He does not think he knows it, or he does not think his decision is final. I mean, reviewing some of these things he's done and ensuring that we get better results. The marine industry is recording the marine sector is recording some successes in that area. The humanitarian ministry is being reviewed, and activities there are ongoing at a level that it's behind what it used to be when we have a minister at the point. But there had been a reason why that ministry, since creation, has not given us the result that is expected. Those are the things that are being reviewed and ensure that when it comes back on board, we are able to get results in a quicker time and meet the expectation of Nigerians. All right,
Mr. Aldo, so whatever is being said, Nigerians appear to be resolved to go on the streets on August the 1st. We're seeing messaging from the presidency, although it's a sad commentary when we look at what is coming from the presidency in terms of the discordant tone. On one hand, we've said that Mohammed Idris perhaps doing a great job of appealing to Nigerians on behalf of the president, though Nigerians would like to hear the president directly, not through proxies. On the other hand, Bayo Onanuga is busy calling names and hitting up the polity as perceived by a lot of people. So it's very confusing as to where the president stands on all of this. But the people appear to be very resolved that their personal reality, no matter what the macroeconomic numbers are, that you and I are very familiar with, as far as they were buying 1 naira now, they are buying 100 naira, the president is not working. Now the president has to sit up to solve the people's problem. If they are resolved to go on August the 1st, how will the government tackle this beyond all the rhetorics we're hearing?
All right. The fact is, the protest is constitutional right of citizens, and it's upheld and will be upheld in democracy. And president is a pro-democrat, is a Democrat and a true Democrat. And like he said yesterday, he's been part of protest, but not part of destruction of life and property. And if we want to be patriotic and be honest, the memories of the EndSARS protest, which was genuinely and well intended by people, but when it was hijacked and it took a wrong turn, many of us call our attention to those areas. These are the fears. I mean, the protest itself are not, any reason for the present government to be afraid of it, that. The current government is not afraid of protest itself, but the recent happening. I mean, we remember vividly the destruction, the amount of destruction and loss of life that happened in the similar protests in the past. These are the concerns.
Mr. Aldo, I'm sorry. Let me butt in here. There are 2 protests that have happened in the last 12 or so years. So why is EndSARS a reference? 2012. Members of the APC and even maybe members of the PDP, a couple of people, the people who now joined the APC, hit the streets of Lagos. Ojota was a beehive of activity. It was like a carnival of some sort. You will enjoy going to protest. According to Mr. Fallon, and which a couple of people agreed to, is the fact that the EndSARS protests, the real organizers had peaceful reasons to do what they had to do until they said government infiltrated that to cause chaos so that they can cancel that, and the military were calling and all of that. So at the end of the day, why this reference to one? Why don't you make reference to 2012, which was peaceful? People are not coming out to destroy or change the government of President Bola Tinubu. They are angry and hungry. They want drastic action. Why is that not a reference?
You know, as much as we do not trust government, government is the only legitimate authority as far as this country is concerned. And by the 2012 Occupy Nigeria protests you talked about, there were no intelligence reports that there were ulterior motive behind those protests. But the NSAS, ahead of the NSAS report, the DSS came out with their report about intelligence gathering that showed that there were some, people with ulterior motives who were going to use the opportunity and take advantage of this protest to cause mayhem, and try to, avert that at all costs. But, the people thought it was an agenda to stop the protest from happening. But we saw the result, and irrespective of the divide, of what side of divide you belong in. I mean, people on the side who want to blame government, that government were responsible. And I mean, government will not be responsible for destroying its own property. No responsible government will be responsible, will take responsibility of taking lives or destroying a public property or even private properties. Currently, there are indications, the DSS, the DGDSS has come up with that, report equally. There are indications, there are intelligence report gathering showing that there are unscrupulous elements who are planning to hijack this protest, however well-intended it might be. Nobody wants to sit back and witness what we witnessed before. That is, the reason why the government is very concerned. And the very essence of protest in the first place is to call attention to a disagreement, or call attention to in this case, the standard of the quality of living that the hardship that we're all going through. But the government has continuously maintained that we are aware of this, but the policies that are being asked to be reversed are policies that are actually put in place to fix this problem on a permanent basis. We just need to listen to one another and reduce, the...
Indeed, Mr. Liu, the report by the DSS and that of the Director of Defense Media Operations are acknowledged. But perhaps it would be equally instructive that evidence be provided as to those who want to cause anarchy during the protests. Perhaps they should, not even perhaps, they should be apprehended. But the constitutional rights of those who want to protest peacefully should be protected if they decide to go ahead on August the 1st. And indeed, the president also acknowledged that he was part of peaceful protests in the past. Just to put that out, but we're totally out of time, Mr. Audu, and we want to thank you very much.
Let me quickly say this. Let me quickly say this too. It would be nice if you will want government to trust that, the intention of this protest is not to cause mayhem. It would be nice if there are people who will come out as, leaders. We want security agencies to provide protection and ensure that, but they've got to be people that they are going to work with. They've got to be people who take responsibility for this protest. In a case where everybody is shouting protest, but there seem to be, nobody who is taking responsibility for the protest. Who do the security agencies work with to ensure that there's peace and security on that day? So we can't say a no face, no name protest is going to happen, and we expect the security agencies to be able to protect no face, no name. It doesn't work if we really are being patriotic.
Your sentiments are well taken. Your sentiments are well taken, Mr. Audu, Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Still the morning brief on Channels Television. We'll switch gears now to an equally important conversation. It's part 2 of where we started off from yesterday, and we're reviewing the all-important oversight function of the legislative arm of government. This time we hear from the horse's mouth. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Functions of the legislative arm of government: representation, oversight, and every other thing they have to do in terms of legislation. So we're being joined on the program by Honorable Bamidele Salam, is the Chairman, House Committee on Public Accounts. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Honorable, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, before we go to issues of oversight and has to do with the National Assembly, let's have your quick take on the conversation we just left off, the issue of the anticipated nationwide protest that is generating literal palpable anxiety on the side of government and the side of other people, because now, like we say, it's a bit of a conflict as to how government wants to manage human rights as against national security.
Well, let me start off by admitting that indeed there are quite a lot of challenges, especially economic pressure. At the moment in the country, there is a lot of failed expectations, let me put it that way. Amongst the populace, there is a whole lot of economic frustration, if you must say. But the question again is, what is the way forward? What is the way out? Yes, fundamentally, protests are constitutionally recognized as a form of expressing dissent or expressing expectations from constitutional authority. But even that freedom, even that, guaranteed freedom has to be exercised within the limit of the ambit of the law. And, the law anticipates orderliness, anticipates, a rule of law, and people are not doing things that can put other citizens at risk in whatever manner. So the dilemma that, people in government space will have at the moment is how to balance this constitutionally guaranteed freedom of the people to expression and the need for us to also protect society from anarchy and, lawlessness. And that's where I think, government is also trying to find balance, apart from the fact that government needs to do more engagement with the populace, more engagement, especially with the youthful population that we have in Nigeria, that are under a lot of pressure at the moment, unemployment, inflation, insecurity, all manner of issues. But like I said, even though there is the platform that guarantees that people can protest as a form of expression, there is also the need to balance that with orderliness, public order, and ensuring that there is no resort to anarchy in the society. And so far, so good. I want to think that government is taking appropriate measures. I've listened to the Minister of Information communicate the feelings of the president and the fact that he's committed to doing things in a better way that can alleviate the sufferings of the people. I've also listened to, some state governors also coming out, to enunciate programs and policies that can cushion the effect of the hard times on the people. But I think we need to do more as a government to engage with the populace and to let those who are agitating for the protest know that, yes, at times you know how some of these things begin, but you may not know how it ends. And the quick reference is always to the NSAS protest, which started as a free expression of frustration with the way the Special Anti-Robbery Squad was, handling the citizens. But eventually, we also what it turned into in most part of the world, most part of the country, at that time. So I want to think that in the next few days, government will do more to engage with the populace and also churn out programs and policies that will be very intentional, at taking away this very, very worrisome economic pressure on the average citizen of this country. All right, Honorable, I know that besides being a politician, you're a lawyer, you have a background in journalism, so you're well grounded on all of this. So this is why I'm asking you this particular question, because we've seen time and again after that NSAS protest, and many times within the Buhari administration and coming into this administration, whenever there's issue of people rising to protest for any reason, there is always anxiety, there is always fear, there is always this subtle threat from, public institutions like the DSS. Oh, we know you have a right to protest, but there's always intelligence or disruption. I don't know whether there's any time where there's no intelligence or disruption when people want to agitate of some sort. So the concern a lot of people are having is that how much
can the people bear? Because if you intimidate them or try to cower them to go back and say, don't protest because security this and the other, you may have that intelligence. There's something that pent-up anger can do. Because if we don't allow the people to express themselves legitimately in an atmosphere of peace without rancor, the day they may even wake up one day without announcing a date could be very detrimental. I want you to help us manage this particular issue that we're dealing with, as far as worry about national security as against managing pent-up anger by the people.
Okay, let me start off by saying I actually identify with those sentiments that you express on the need for people to have platform for free expression as a way of also deepening engagement. One, also as a way of avoiding the consequences of not being able to express oneself. But you see, we have to put everything in a historical context. We have antecedents, we have precedent. I've seen demonstrations where demonstrators, for example, block roads, not allowing vehicles to move. And I've seen, for instance, people who have medical emergencies not being able to move as a result of protesters, blocking road. I've seen media men being harassed, being beaten up, almost lynched by protesters. I've seen all manner of things resulting out of protest. So what I'm saying is that, yes, we agree that there is a need. When I had a background of protest. I was a student union activist. And, in those days of the military era, we had all manner of, clashes with the military, as student union activists and what have you. But again, there has to be a line. And that line is that where one's rights ends, another person's right begins. If you're going to protest, fine and good. Can we draw the line? Can we express ourselves in a manner that will not infringe on the right of other citizens, that will not also lead to disruptions in the social and economic activities of other persons? I've seen protesters gone to lock up people's shops and saying they must not open their shops to sell. I've seen protesters, during the last Nigerian Labour Congress and TUC strike, going to shut down the national grid, shut down the power stations, that provide electricity for hospitals, for homes, for schools, for what have you. Now, these are some of the things that we need to, find a balance to. And so if you see security men appearing to be hyperactive in trying to prevent all this, I think they are also learning from the very, sad experience of the past. And I think what we also need to do is to get the civil society, to have a better understanding of how some of these things can be organized in a manner that will portray us also to the rest of the world as being civil people who have an understanding of how to drive home our point and our issues without being violent, without being crude, without being, intrusive onto other person's, freedom, as well. So yeah. I think the most important thing as far as I'm concerned is finding that balance, and for government to realize that there has to be a lot more to be done by all tiers of government. Indeed. To assuage the pains of the populace. There is a whole lot of anger in the land. There is hunger, there is unemployment, there is, all manner of pressure, on people. And unless government is very intentional and very demonstrative, and we can see the evidence and the result of that seriousness, there will always be all these kind of issues of people wanting to protest, wanting to do all manner of things, only to express themselves. It all, boils down to having a more responsive and responsible, governance system.
Yeah, and it's because of all those implications of protests, at different times in the history of the country, that perhaps security agents should take full responsibility of managing the organization, the conduct, and indeed possible implications of the protest. But let's move on to the real issue, which would form the crux of our conversation. Oversight, one of the core functions of the legislative arm of government. I wonder if you have been, monitoring actively the opinion of commentators on the character and outlook of this 10th Assembly. Many are not enamored by this legislature, either in terms of scrutiny of the policies of the executive presented before it, or in the management of whistleblowers, or in the oversight of MDAs in the first place. In fact, some go as far as saying that this 10th Assembly is part and parcel of the executive. So let's start on that generic term before we begin to look at the core issues. What are your thoughts on this perception of this 10th Assembly?
Well, I want to state with respect that perception, if it actually exists, is not a very correct perception. The legislature, as an arm of government that is created specifically by Section 4 of the Constitution, has rules and responsibilities clearly defined by the Constitution. Yes, we operate a system of government that allows for separation of powers, but it also allows for checks and balances. Now, I understand that what you're saying is that, the public most probably expect more of the checks and balances in the operation of our legislative functions. Now, this is not peculiar to the 10th Assembly. It's been on for so many, assemblies of people wanting to see more of a brawl between the executive and the legislature than any other thing. Conversely, again, when there is this kind of a brawl, for example, the type you had in the 8th Assembly, for example, when Bukola Saraki and Dogara were heading the parliament, and you had a not too frosty, very frosty relationship between the executive and the parliament, the public also comes to bash the parliament, because the expectations of the people is that there will be service delivery. And that is the whole purpose of government. So anything that will result into a halt into service delivery, for example, delays in the passage of budget, which we have had in so many years, at times running up to March, April, or May of a year before a budget is passed, will again result in the bashing of the legislature by the same commentators. And when the legislature also takes it upon itself to have a more speedy, passage of that budget, I just use the budget issue as an example. You have people also coming on the other side. Oh no, why is it that it is everything that the executive brings, that gets approved by the parliament? I think, the understanding of the electorate, of the people, about the actual kind of relationship that should exist between the legislature and the executive is very paramount to understanding why some of these things happen. Very recently, we saw what happened. That was in the 9th Assembly when the ruling party that has even the majority in the parliament could not succeed in getting some things passed by the same legislature. Now, in every democracy, we operate a party democracy. As at the moment, the All Progressive Congress, which is the party that formed the executive, has a clear majority in the legislature. So you will definitely expect that most of the things that will come out of the legislature will agree with what is in the parliament, the executive, especially on the basis of the fact that they have an agenda, they have a manifesto which they brought. Now the question will be, those of us who are in the opposition, how much are we doing to now provide alternate views, alternate positions, alternate programs, alternate perspectives to issues that the executive bring, and within the limit of what is allowed in a democracy. I think the 10th Assembly has been up and doing. There has been quite a lot of times when issues get debated very intensely, even if they will eventually get passed or approved. They go through very deep scrutiny, and even some people who are members of the ruling party, the All Progressive Congress, on the floor of the parliament, have been known to bring motions that are very critical of programs and policies of the government. And this is how the legislature should work ordinarily. If what people expect is that at every turn, at every point in time, there should be brawl between the executive and legislature, that whatever the executive brings, should be shut down or delayed or whatever. The public governance is what eventually will suffer, because a lot of things will be delayed, and when there is that delay, people will also ask questions from government.
If I may quickly follow up there, while a brawl is not necessarily expected, perhaps ideal questions would be, what is expected. For instance, Jeffrey said at the start of midway into the last segment about how the last administration plunged the country into debt with the approval, the last legislature rather, with the approval of Ways and Means. And what we're seeing yet again, under this current administration is the express approval of extra budgetary spending of 6.2 trillion naira that will bring this budget to more than 30 trillion naira. And one would ask why no scrutiny has been brought to bear upon this extra spending, particularly because of our burgeoning debt and the reality of the exchange rates, the naira to the dollar. How do you weigh in on this?
Well, thank you very much. Let me just let me quickly correct something. When you say extra budgetary expenditure, what was brought is not an extra budgetary expenditure. It's a supplementary
expenditure.
Now, extra budgetary means
supplementary expenditure.
That are being spent that were not expended. And you remember very well. You recall that the president brought this request with specific provisions made in the bill that was brought, and those provisions cover issue of providing food security, issue of fixing infrastructure, issues that have to do with providing more for security agencies to be able to combat some of the security challenges that we do have. Now, one other thing that I want the public to understand is that most of the work of the parliament actually happens at the committee levels. And that is where the issue of oversight comes in. If you, and of course, I know the Channels Television covered the engagement of the Appropriation Committee, for example, with the Honorable Minister of Finance, the Honorable Minister of Budget about 2 weeks ago. And that was a very, very intense, interaction between the Appropriation Committee representing the House of Reps and these key ministers of government. In fact, at a point, you could see members' frustration at the delay in the implementation of the 2024 budget. As a follow-up to that, the committee I chair, the Public Account Committee, also had an engagement with the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy on this same issue, where we extracted commitments from government on the speedy implementation of the content of the 2024 budget, regardless of whatever is running on the 2023 budget. The same thing happens at so many other committee levels where Parliament members of the legislature engage with the executive to scrutinize proposals, laws that are being brought, policies and budget. And this is where most of the activities of the legislature actually takes place, because Section 62 of the Constitution actually gives the Parliament the power to create these committees and assign to them responsibilities in a manner that will allow us to be more efficient. At times when you are in plenary, you have limited number of hours, you have 360 members, everybody wanting to speak. You hardly have a very thorough engagement of issues in that kind of a forum. Unfortunately, that is the forum that is most projected as the business of the parliament. But the most of the business of the parliament happens at the committee level. The engagement, the scrutiny, the conversation, the questioning, the very interrogative nature of legislature is felt through the committees. And this happens in a manner that does not even have any coloration of political parties. Committees that are headed by members of the ruling party will engage with honorable ministers, with heads of agencies and departments, in a manner that you will wonder whether they are even of the same political party, because that is what the legislature is. So this new supplementary budget has specific provisions, and these are issues that come in the course of implementation of a budget. That's why they are called supplementary budget, because the president, having been elected on a particular mandate and being the man that is in charge of running the affairs of the government, has a duty to day-to-day insight into issues that come up. If any issue comes up that was not envisaged in the previous budget, it behoves on the executive to come to the legislature and ask for more funding to do this thing. The only thing is that we must be able to now track the funds to be sure that they are properly deployed.
All right, Honorable, we're almost out of time. Your committee is a very, very important committee, Public Accounts, which has to do with sitting to review audit findings. And I'm wondering what you have. You were in the 9th, and this is the 10th National Assembly. And given the alleged leakages and thefts and corruption we've seen, we expect a lot of things from your committee because when you look at the books, sometimes they don't pan out at the end of the day in terms of what is budgeted for, what was expended, as to what we can identify as these monies were expended for. So one is wondering, with the work your committee is doing in collaboration perhaps with the EFCC, why don't we have as many public officials in jail as they should be for stealing our Commonwealth, allegedly?
Okay, thank you very much. You are very correct. The Public Account Committee is a committee that deals mostly with issues of ensuring that public funds are spent lawfully, are spent judiciously. And I can only speak about this assembly, where I have the privilege of heading that committee. If you have been following the media reportage of the activities of this committee, you will discover that we have actually done quite a lot in exposing some of the malfeasance and outright impunity that public officials have undertaken in the expenditure of public funds. Let me give an example of the investigation into the COVID-19 expenditure, which we carried out and submitted. We laid the report before the House just before the break. Now, the COVID pandemic was a global disaster. And one would expect that the sum of almost 2 trillion naira that was voted into combating the effect of the pandemic, fixing infrastructure, reflecting the economy, will be substantially used for those purposes. But unfortunately, what we discovered there were very mind-boggling. A lot of diversion of public funds from the purpose for which they were meant. There are instances where people apply for this money and never even bother to give an account of it. But again, the way we also work, we have submitted a report before the House, which I'm sure the House is giving attention to consider as soon as we resume from the recess. And the findings of such report is what we can now transmit to the EFCC, to the ICPC, to the Nigerian Police Force, and other organs of government, which have the responsibility of enforcing, the laws. We are lawmakers. Again, this is a lacuna in our own law. In some other part of the world, there's a public account tribunal. In some other countries, even in Africa, where findings of the Public Account Committee goes directly to that tribunal, because submitting those reports to EFCC, ICPC, and whatever, again, it's like reporting the executive to the executive, which also has its own, downside. So there are quite a whole lot, and I agree with you absolutely that, we run a country where impunity, is the order of the day. Out of every 10 naira that is voted as public expenditure, probably up to 5-6 naira are either wasted or stolen or diverted. And this is not a good thing for a country that is struggling with so much deficit in infrastructure and in, welfare and so on and so forth. Right. So I assure you that the Public Account Committee of the 10th Assembly, which I have the privilege of chairing, is up and doing. Our meetings are covered mostly by by almost all media, and the findings that we make are also made very public. And quite a lot has happened in terms of our investigation. You just spoke about leakages now. There's an investigation on Remitter and the leakages of government fund, which has resulted into quite a whole lot of discoveries. We had instances where people have refunded money back into government coffers. We have directed money to be refunded. A particular ministry got 10 billion naira that was meant for establishing a COVID vaccine, vaccine facility, which was never spent and never returned. We recovered that money back into government treasury earlier this year, and so many others.
Honorable, we're totally out of time, Honorable. We must thank you, and we will be inviting you a lot more since you're in public accounts, because we need to know how our monies are spent, and in collaboration with the EFCC, because
thank you so much.
One of the shouts on the EFCC is the fact that it's great to tackle Yahoo boys and stop them from, internet fraud, but there are bigger fishes to fry. Politicians who are stealing our monies allegedly, and some it's even difficult to get them to take a plea in court allegedly for the monies,
not only
whether or not they took or not. So we must thank you.
Civil servants, some private businesses and contractors and concerns, all the spectrum.
Thank you, Honorable Bamidele Salam is the Chairman House Committee on Public Accounts. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, we will take a quick break. When we come back, we'll meet Hero Daniels. Who is he? Well, I guess you know. Join us again.
Africa, you only have 3 career options. It's either you're a what? Doctor or a what? Lawyer or a what? Any other thing, you are a failure. If you like, go and tell your father, oh, daddy, I am a content creator. He will look in your face and say, you are a failure. You can never. But my papa, the guy tried all he could to make sure I studied medicine and surgery. I wrote JAM the first time. JAM me. They gave me fishery. I was very excited though. I'm like, daddy. They gave me fishery. Figine. I said fishery. Now wait. So when I go for Umunna meeting and other people are introducing their sons, they will say this is Chinedu. He's a medical doctor. He works at Reddington Hospital. Me, I will now open my mouth and say, this is Hirongam. He's a fishist. He works by the riverside.
And so, are you excited about this segment as I am? I'm sure you are. So, come along. Let's welcome comedian, presenter, content creator, media personality, and of course, a member of the channel's family.
Oh, yes.
Ifeanyi Chukwu Hero Daniels. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited. You know, it feels good to be at this, on this side.
Does it feel good, really?
No, it does. It does, because I've always wanted to express myself in a different way, just sit at the other side and get into it.
I don't like that.
So I feel like I've made it in life right now.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on this side of the divide. And, just reading your bio, I was engrossed in it, listening to how you started off as with your family as your first, audience for your humor. We're going to delve into that. But let's piggyback a bit to where we started off from. We're talking about this planned nationwide protests and how young people are preparing for August the 1st and the response of government.
Yes.
You are a young person. And how do you feel about, how young people should be dissipating their energies, amid this current economic realities? It's a way of also asking if, participation in protests would be, advisable, on the one hand, and if not, how should they also, be expressing, ventilating, alternatively, constructively?
Okay, thank you very much. I believe that the young people of every nation is literally the backbone of that nation. We have the vigor, we have the strength, and we are not just the future, but we're also the present, And let's be honest, this planned protest is not just about the young people, it's about everybody, When last did you buy tomatoes? The prices of tomatoes out there. In fact, I'm currently courting a lady, and one of her love languages is gifts. And I sent her a basket of tomatoes the last time, and she's like, yes, this is the man I want to marry, right? Because it's literally so expensive that, you give somebody a basket of tomato, you've done the whole world for the person. Like you've given the person the whole world. 2020, I'm sure that everybody still refers to like the NSAS protest and how it ended. We all saw how young people came together. And I think for the very first time, we felt that our voices were heard. There's so many conspiracy theories around what happened during the protest in terms of whether the government deliberately tried to implant certain elements to make it look like, the protest went violent. Yes, there was destruction of properties, but the core protesters, the core young people, the people, a lot of celebrities and a lot of people that came together, the protest was peaceful for as long as it went on, up until those elements started infiltrating them. In fact, the people that destroyed lives and properties were not the core protesters. These were people that a lot of people allegedly said that were, implanted just so that the protest can turn violent. I know that the current government is sort of trying as much as possible to see that people don't come out on the streets to protest, but it is a fundamental human right. People need to vent their anger. Young people need to vent their anger. And I don't like the fact that the government officials keep making reference to the NSAS protests when we all know that Occupy Nigeria was literally the mother of all protests. And all of the stakeholders as a den, they were there, So I'm also encouraging the people, the opposition, opposition parties, encouraging the older people, not just young people, to really come out and let their voices be heard. Just protest as peacefully as you can. And you asked about the alternative to a physical protest. Oh, we've been doing that. We've been protesting on social media. We've been tweeting. We've been tagging the government officials. You know, Twitter, or now known as X, is an app that a lot of people express their displeasure when it comes to how the government is running. And I think it's not just about the fact that the economy is bad. I think it's also the body language of the government officials. So you can't say that we should all bear the brunt of, or just bear the brunt of the sacrifice we're making by removing fuel subsidy and some of the other policies that have affected the economy. And then you go ahead and we're hearing about private jets. You go ahead and we're seeing that your salaries are increasing. You know, yes, the House of Reps, they recently slashed 50% of their salaries, but it's not enough. You know, has the president addressed the people? If we're saying we're in this together, speak to us heart to heart. This is what is going on. And make sacrifices, cut down government expenditure. And it's becoming sad in the sense that government comes in, another government comes in, and it's the same story, you know. So as much as possible, young people, when they're going out, we encourage them to protest peacefully. I'm pretty sure the security agencies will be there to protect lives and properties as they should. So yeah, that's about it, really.
So what about a young person looking at you right now and saying, oh, he smells of success if he can go ahead and make something of himself without necessarily ventilating, anger on the street, peacefully though. I think I'm going to, find inspiration in what he's doing.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
So somebody looking at you right now and saying you are a success, and I'd rather find inspiration in what you're doing rather than protest. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say to them that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step, and protesting would not make you less of a success. You know, we are all working towards becoming better. Wherever I think I've gotten to in my career, there are 1,000 more steps to take. So there's someone I'm aspiring to be like. There's a level of success I also want to attain. Wherever that young person is, at his or her level, there's a level of success that he or she has attained. Being successful doesn't mean you're not going to protest. It doesn't mean that come August 1st, it doesn't mean that come August 1st that I would not join and say, you know what, I want to also lend my voice to be heard. If all things being equal, and I am available and I don't have, something that is tying me down on that particular day and I can lend my voice, I'll definitely lend my voice. On social media, we'll lend our voices. So protesting does not necessarily, have to be tied with, okay, I want to be successful, so I don't want to protest. You know what I mean?
All right. Okay, I wanted to jump to your story, but I'm tempted to stay with the issue of national interest. If you can do that for us in 1 or 2 minutes, because you're a young
1 minute.
1 minute, because you're a young person, and I want you to speak to the issue of the president's cabinet. For instance, some of us are observing that a lot of, let's not use the word a lot, some of them are not doing well. We don't even know their names. I mean, there are some young people after President Bola Tinubu, they don't know any other person. Not to even talk of the ministers. In fact, it was recently we even saw Minister of Youth Affairs, the lady, speaking concerning these protests. The Minister of State for Youths, we haven't seen him that much. So these are the people that should be engaging young people. We don't see them as active, not on social media, not in the media and all of that. So do you think, in your view, as a young person, the president needs to do something about who he's working with?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there are platforms for the elected officials and the appointed officials to actually just reach out. So the president cannot necessarily babysit every single person that he appoints, So I think also they need to step up and, do their job, connect with the people. The president is one man, and the reason why he has a cabinet and he has a lot of people working with him is so that he can reach out to as many Nigerians as possible, So it's very important for, these appointed officials to make themselves available for the people, connect. Because I think the major issue here is that there's a disconnect between the governing body and the people that they are governing.
Okay, let's leave politics for now. Let's talk about Hero Daniel. So
yes, please.
Let's walk back. Some people, they've seen you in your gigs outside, what you do on channels, sitting in for Ebuka and Robin. So let's rub minds now.
Yes, please.
So let's rub minds. So where you started from? Let's go from there.
Okay, so my first exposure to television was when I was 14, in my local station, Anambra Broadcasting Service. They were looking for a young, ABS, yes, they were looking for a young, vibrant presenter to host their show called Child's Parliament. So we're discussing politics, we're discussing indiscipline in schools and a lot of societal issues that would affect young people. That was my first exposure to television. Then it's been an absolute ride 16 years later. I've delved into other passions of mine, like stand-up comedy. I also act as well. I also create content on social media because it was very important for me to diversify from the mainstream media. You have to constantly find a way to evolve. And it was very important for me to evolve.
I understand we have something big. We have plenty of questions for you.
Yes, please.
Just I don't like the seat you're sitting on, so I'm happy you're sitting there. So let's watch this from Hero Daniels. We'll be back to engage him even more.
5'6", he's 30 years old, current bank account balance 10 million plus. Hobbies, he loves to travel. State of origin, he's from Ogun State. Give it up for the one, the only Abiodun.
What are you looking for in a partner?
I'm looking for someone who actually wants relationship because she wants it. But I'm looking for someone I can build a home with. What's your deal breaker in a relationship?
When he's rude, when he's toxic, when he does not have a listening ear, when he does not communicate. I don't feel you.
Explain what's going on there. What is happening?
Okay, so it's no longer news that I'm the president of the Federal Republic of Single People, and
unelected.
Unopposed. And unlike some presidents, I'm actually really trying as much as possible to make sure that my people are happy. So I came up with a game show. It's called True Love Games. So it's a matchmaking show where I bring bachelors and eligible bachelorettes to come together and let's begin their love story.
So how many success stories have come out of
well, so far, I think about 7 couples are currently dating. We've matched over 14. But now, sometimes you match people and the moment they leave the studio, they're like, okay, it was really nice knowing you.
so that busting of the balloon, is it part of it?
Yes, popping the balloon. So if you...
Tell me the worst you've seen, because I've watched one, not yours. I can't remember whether it's a lady that was coming to meet gentlemen or a gentleman that was coming to meet a lady, but forgive me. But all I remember is as soon as the guy walked in, everything was catching I'm not interested, I'm out. Tell me the worst you've seen.
Well, that's the format of the show. So if you're not interested in a guy or you're not interested in a lady and you have the balloon in your hand, you just pop it as an indicator that I am not interested in you. So the worst that has happened was the young man just walked in and he hadn't even opened his mouth and he just said, he was like, what's happened?
All the ladies
popped their balloons. And he was like, I'll be person picking. I beg. But we also give them an opportunity to get back their balloons if they feel they've made a bad judgment. Okay. It's a very crazy experiment.
So what was their reason for just trying to ruin the guy?
Oh, they said his fashion sense was bad.
Fashion sense.
Just fashion.
Okay, but beyond that, it's quite, an invaluable show. And I want to know what the lessons that, have come out of that show for you, particularly for the realities of young people who are dating, who are looking for the ideal person, and have to resort to such a show. What are the lessons for you?
So the lessons, number one is the dating pool is really bad. And I think we need to really pay attention to how we communicate with the opposite sex and how we sort of interact as human beings generally. I feel like people don't invest in personal development and personal growth. I also feel like people are not accountable to themselves. So in the sense that a lot of people don't actually sit down, analyze and say, okay, how am I functioning as a human being to other people? And it comes out in their interaction. You now see how deeply divided this country also is amongst tribal lines, because part of the criteria is also saying where you're from. And then you hear people saying, I cannot date somebody from the eastern part of Nigeria or from the western part of Nigeria. And this is 2024. very surprisingly. So you see how deeply divided we are amongst religious and, ethnic lines. And as much as possible with the platform, I try to tell people that, first we might come from a particular tribe, but we are Nigerians. Treat me as a human being first before judging me based on where I come from, the kind of language I speak. And I can understand that, yes, sometimes you need to factor in certain cultural differences for people to actually function as a unit. However, I believe that I don't think our cultures are that far apart that we cannot coexist together as one. So yes, if there's anything I've taken away from, running 20 successful episodes of True Love Games on YouTube, it's the fact that we need to do more in terms of our personal development and also in terms of letting go of certain biases that are actually bringing this nation back. And you see it in the polity as well. I mean, I'm not trying to get back into politics, but we see tweets saying that, Igbo people are not going to protest because, when Igbo people were doing X, Y, Z. No, Igbo people are Nigerians, Igbo people are suffering. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, moving forward, there are so many parts to you. Which parts should we be expecting you to amplify for the rest of the year?
Well, that would be the hero Daniels that creates content. I just really want to double down on creating content. I've been creating content on social media for the longest time. So I just there's a new path I've discovered in the sense that there's an area a lot of people are not paying attention to, and that is the love life of single people. And I just really want to bring as many initiatives as possible to help a lot of people find love.
It's like you want to stay single for a long time.
Not at all, not at all. In fact, my parents have given me a deadline that I must get married before December. And yes.
They'll show you as a seed.
I should be very soon.
Hopefully. I've not found the wife yet, but yes, I'm in several talking stages.
I like that. I wonder if your pool is also from the love show.
No. It's the number one rule: you never fish in your pool. Let's separate ourselves and then let's serve the people first.
So, are you telling us on this show that you've never seen a lady or a set of ladies that are like, break this rule, though?
No, not at all.
But what do people say that, who cooks a pot of soup and doesn't eat from it?
Oh, well, it depends. It depends on if you're cooking the pot of soup for a particular set of people, you just cook it for them, and then just allow them to eat their food. It's their food, it's not yours.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk about comedy now.
Oh, please. I
chuckled when I read your bio and you said when you said you wanted to do comedy, your dad said, "Is that your first joke?"
Yes. Yes.
That was ironical because you describe him as a fun personality.
Yes.
So when he sees you today and what you've made of yourself, what comes to his mind? What does he say to you?
So my father is my biggest fan. In fact, for my comedy special, which aired on the Holiday Channel on DSTV earlier on this year, the Black Friday Child, he actually introduced me on to the stage.
Amazing. Wow.
Yes. So the whole concept of my comedy special, was, it seemed like God was doing a Black Friday deal with my father, birth three children, and then get one free. So I'm the free guy. I'm the last one of the family. He never anticipated me. He just woke up one morning and then my mom said, I'm pregnant again. He said, really? So yes, so that's the thing. So just if you watch the career joke when I said that there were only 3 career options available to a lot of young Africans, back in the day, comedy was never part of it. And, my dad, as much as possible, really tried to make sure I became a medical doctor because it was a very respectable profession and I was super smart and all of that. So he just really tried his best, but
it didn't work
Nigeria
out.
happened.
But
so
who
says presenters are not as competent as medical doctors? We appreciate you, Ifeanyi Chukwu Hero Daniels. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun.
Absolutely.
And we look forward to being in your next show.
Okay.
All right, so that's our offering for the entire week, and it's been an awesome one. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Of course, stay on with Channels Television through the weekend and always. I am Bukola Koka.
Absolutely. Sunrise Daily is up next at the top of the hour. Coyote will be back next week, of course, on the show. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.